What's going on, Jeromes? So this week we talked about how the Minnesota Vikings could and should find the Robin to Justin Jefferson's Batman, or I don't know, Batman to Justin Jefferson's Batman, etc. And I know, and I'm Jerome Ezekiel Thielen. Love the story, local kid, hashtag one of us, Mankato State University Community College. But it sort of is what it is. And with Thielen's contract, $11 million and change becomes fully guaranteed on the third day of the new league year, $13.4 million in new money. Is he worth that number anymore? Probably not. And no one takes a pay cut. Thielen could just take a pay cut and stay here. No one does that, because pay cuts are about respect. They're about ego. And even though Thielen obviously loves it here in the great state of Minnesota, I think it's highly unlikely. So the Vikings could and should be looking in free agency or the draft. Free agency, of course, comes first, and we have a number of free agents that the Vikings could and should be looking at. Now, before you get over the sticker shock, because we have a lot of the spot rack contract estimates, and the Vikings can, of course, free up the cap space needed to bring in a guy like a wide receiver 2 in free agency, especially if they get rid of Thielen's contract, because and I just want to outline the going rates of some wide receiver 2s around the league. So, wide receiver 2s nowadays are getting $20 million a year. Look at Amari in Dallas. Look at Mike Williams with the Chargers. Look at Chris Godwin with the Bucks. So, some of these contracts are going to appear like bargains. So, yeah, get over the sticker shock in terms of context. Overall, they're relatively good deals. So here are 5 free agent wide receiver 2s for the Minnesota Vikings. Number 5, Paris Campbell of the Colts. 25 years young, Spot Rack estimates his contract at $2.5 million. We'll get into why. 2019 second round pick out of the Ohio State University. 57 catches, 581 yards, receiving 3 touchdowns in 2022. Now, the reason why his number is so low, because he's basically a one-year wonder. Right? So 15 total games in his first 3 seasons, had a number of injury issues, was labeled injury prone and a bust, but no, he really got things together, played 17 games in 2022, and he is a slot machine. And I think that they're just scratching the surface on what Paris Campbell could do. And I think that Paris Campbell in the Vikings offense, working with KJ and TJ and JJ and all the J's, I think that would be really good for Paris Campbell. Next up, spicy. I like this one. Number 4, Mecole Hardman of the Chiefs. So he's 24 years young, estimated at $10.3 million per year. 2019 second round pick out of Georgia. 25 catches, 297 yards receiving, and 4 touchdowns in 2022. Now, his season was cut short because of a groin injury. It's also one of the reasons why the Chiefs picked up Kadarius Toney at the trade deadline. But speed, versatility, he was great in Andy Reid's system. 16 total touchdowns in his first 4 seasons in the league, and that's what he brings. He's got that deep ball speed. You can put him on jet sweeps. You can do a lot of things with him, and something that's been missing from the Vikings offense is just that guy who can take the top off the defense, alleviate things underneath for Jefferson and KJ and TJ, etc. I think that Hardman would find himself in a nice situation here with the Vikings. Next up, free agent wide receiver 2, number 3, DJ Chark, coming over from the Lions. So was in Detroit for a year, previously Jacksonville. 2018 second round pick out of LSU, wide receiver U. 26 years young, Spot Rack estimates his contract at $9.5 million per year. In his 1 season in Detroit, 30 catches, 502 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns. Yeah, and we as Vikings fans, we saw a number of those stats. It was kind of rough. But 2019 Pro Bowler, 1 year in Detroit, did pretty good. There is some talk about them potentially wanting him back. So taking him from a division rival would be kind of nice. Plus, Kirky needs a tall receiver. DJ Chark is all of 6'4", solid outside the numbers, and is an operator for the Vikings in free agency. Next up, free agent wide receiver 2, number 2, Allen Lazard. Let's get nuts. Let's get spicy. Speaking of taken away from a division rival. So the greasy grimy Green Bay Packers receiver, 27 years young. Spot Rack estimates his contract at $12.5 million. Now, before you get into that's way too much. Chris Godwin's making $20 million a year. That's all. So Lazard was a 2018 UDFA coming out of Iowa State. Initially was with the Jaguars, ended up in Green Bay. 60 catches, 788 yards, receiving 6 touchdowns in 2022. 6'5", 227, could play slot and outside. There's a lot of ways that you can use him, and he's been a touchdown machine. 14 in the last 2 years. with the corpse of Aaron Rodgers. And I think that, again, stealing from a division rival, giving Kirk another big-bodied receiver that has some versatility, I think that he would be a really nice addition, like Lazard and Justin Jefferson and KJ. Come on. Lastly, receiver number 1. So Jacoby Myers, 26, coming in from the Patriots, $12.5 million spot rack estimate on his deal. 2019 UDFA coming out of NC State. He put up 67 catches, 804 yards receiving, 6 touchdowns last season. He does have back-to-back 800-yard receiving seasons. Now, what's really impressive is this year's production, when Joe Judge and Matt Patricia were his OCs, and Mac Jones is basically just having like a meltdown on the sideline every single week. But if you can take out the brain fart play against the Raiders, that's whatever. But primarily works from the slot. I think he would be a nice underneath target. Also is only 26, so I think that he could and should be a decent addition to the Vikings receiving core as a wide receiver too. So overall, I mean, obviously the draft is a draft, and there's a lot of really intriguing names, but there's a lot of guys that the Vikings will be able to afford once they create the cap space that are already established in the league and can contribute right away with Jefferson as well as KJ. But that's it. Let's take a look at 5 free agent wide receiver 2s for the Vikings. What are your thoughts on our thoughts? Who would you add to the list? Who do you want to see? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skull Production Value.